Hello, Southern California, and welcome to this week's edition of Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the president and founder of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. Each week, we are committed on the show to providing you with retirement planning solutions, and today, we are going to talk about the greatest trick that's ever been played on us as we look ahead towards retirement. Do you know what that is? You're going to want to find out today, and we've got solutions for you on how to navigate it successfully. So, Tom, my friend, I'm excited to dive in and have this conversation with you.
I am too. I love to talk about what we're going to talk about on this show. It's not pleasant. It's not exciting. We're going to talk about taxes. Most of you think taxes is a 4-letter word rather than a 5-letter word. And it is for a lot of people because taxes, nobody likes to pay them. We all like to live in America, but nobody likes to pay taxes. I think sometimes we get upset with the way they spend our money, but we have to pay them. And the question is, do you want to pay them now or later, when now they might be lower, later they might be higher? Do you think taxes will be higher in the future or lower in the future? A lot of questions there. We're going to try to answer some of those questions on the show today.
For sure. Well, this concept of taxes being the greatest trick that's ever been played, when we look at what has happened over the last 50 years, it's been subtle and it's been slow. But why do you call it the greatest trick that's ever been played on us?
Let me tell you about my grandpa. Okay. My grandpa was Silas Elijah Mosley, and he was from Lyons, Georgia, lived there all his life. We had a 444-acre family farm. And my grandfather also would take the railroad, and we'd take the railroad train down to Savannah, Georgia, and he would work for the railroad 5 days a week and come back because he had enough kids. He had 7 kids, 9 kids, I think, and they were all taking care of the farm. So when Grandpa retired, it was in 1963. I was about 10 years old, and they put a little bow tie on me, and we went down, and they gave him a party. They gave him a pension, and they gave him a gold watch. Now, the gold watch was fought over by 2 of my aunts for the next 30 years until they both died within a week of each other because Grandpa had supposedly promised them that they would get the gold watch. But that's how they used to treat people. And the key word there is pensions. People used to have pensions. 50, 60 years ago, there was a point where 63% of every American adult was covered by a pension, either their own or through their spouse. And then along came 1978, and they changed the rules. They completely changed the rules. Now, they didn't change the rules quickly, but they invented this great concept that was called a 401k and a 403b and a 457 and IRAs. And all of those things came about, and a pension is a defined benefit plan. A 401k is a defined contribution plan. And to start with, the companies made a lot of contribution to it. There's an element of people out there that have a pension and a 401k. And what happens is they have the defined benefit plan of the pension, and they have the defined contribution plan. And when they started 401ks, and it was all well and good because sometimes they would match 10% of whatever you put into it. And over a period of time, they began to do away with the pensions. And they it was a trick.
Yeah.
Because now the pension was something that was provided by the company, by and large. Very few people had to contribute to their pension.
Right.
But the defined contribution plan is something that pretty much now it's up to you and what you contribute. Companies still contribute maybe 2%, some 4%. I actually ran across one recently that was still contributing 6% match, so that they were putting in some money with you. But the second largest contribution match is 0. They don't put anything in. They just offer you a 401k. So it was a big trick to change the rules of the game as we went along.
Well, because the responsibility now was shifted from the company providing for your retirement onto us as the employee. The onus is on us. And none of these accounts were issued with instruction manuals to teach people how to invest this money, how to manage the money. And not only did the rules change in a big way with that Revenue Act of 1978, date when these accounts were created, but the rules keep changing and they continue to change. And we're seeing that play out in real time, even right now.
My 7-year-old granddaughter, Coco, her real name is Colette, and I call her Coco. She's to the point now where we like to play a lot of board games. And Poppy, I'm a big teaser, you know, and I'm
that
always
doesn't surprise me, by the way.
Doesn't surprise you at all, okay? And so I'll start playing a board game with Coco, and I'll tease her about, you know, moving her place on the board or something, or if we're playing a card game, I'll tease her about a card, and there have been a couple of times where even at 7 years old, Coco says, well, I quit, Poppy, because you keep changing the rules. The unfortunate thing is we can't quit because the government keeps changing the rules. They make the rules on our 401k, but we cannot just decide to quit because we're involved in it and they make the rules. You know, there's that old saying, the golden rule is he who holds the goal makes the rules, you know, and they don't necessarily hold the goal, but how we get that goal is there, and they continually change the rules. For instance, the most recent huge change was the SECURE Act, which some of us lovingly call the Insecure Act of 2019, because they came out and they said, well, this is not going to cost you any money. And then the next person who talked at that congressional news conference announcing the bill said, over a period of 10 years, this is going to put $388 billion more into the Treasury. Where's that money coming from? It's coming from us. And so what they did was, there was a long time since they started, all the way up until 2019. Actually, 2020 was when the rules changed. The law was passed in 2019. But now, when you pass your IRA along to your children, they were able to originally take it out slowly over their entire lifetime. So you could actually pass along a generational wealth that would help your children forever, as long as they were alive on this earth. Then they came along and they said, nope, all of that money that's in the IRA that you pass along to your children has to be taken out within 10 years. So bingo, the rules changed. It puts $388 billion more into the Treasury. Where's the money coming from? Out of your IRA, if you follow the government plan. So here's the deal. I want to ask you, and I know we've got other things to cover in the other segments, but here's what I want to ask you. Is the person you're working with that's doing your investments, that's doing your financial planning, are they addressing taxes? Because it's huge. Are they staying up with the rule changes? Because I have people that sit in our conference rooms every single week and they tell us, my guy that I'm working with right now tells me taxes are on your own. We don't do taxes. We don't give advice on taxes. We don't want to coach you on taxes. And there are ways that you can develop your own plan of the taxation of your 401ks and your IRAs. That's what we're going to talk about in the rest of the show. But as we get close to this first break, I want to ask you the question, is the person you're working with right now, are they addressing your tax issue? Are they addressing and telling you how much you're going to have to pay in taxes over a period of time? We do. And all of our 7 financial planners who would work with you at Mosley Wealth Management do address the issue of taxation, because it's the biggest single thing that can take away your retirement dreams, because you don't realize how much you're going to pay in taxes.
It's so true, Tom, because at the end of the day, it's not about how much you have, it's about how much you get to keep. And so if you're already working with another financial advisor and they are not having these kinds of conversations with you, it's time to get a second opinion. And the team of Mosley Wealth Management would love to be able to provide that to you completely complimentary. So if you would like to schedule a time to get your complimentary retirement blueprint built for you, All you need to do is call that number on the bottom of your screen, 866-709-1462. Or if you'd rather connect online, we've got you covered. If you simply pull out your smartphone, open up the camera app, just point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Mosley Wealth Management will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary retirement blueprint that way as well. Don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more to cover on today's important conversation of taxes right after this.
Welcome to Right on the Money Moment with Tom Mosley. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and Tom, I have a very important question for you today. Taxes. I want to talk to you. What's going on with taxes right now?
Do you like to pay taxes?
No.
Yeah, I like to pay everything that's legally required, but nothing more. And that's what we try to do with all of our clients. What's going on with taxes right now is taxes are going to go up in the future. In fact, we know when. On January 1st of 2026, all of the rates that we have right now for the brackets, they all move around. They go back to the higher brackets, and they're going to go up about 2 to 5%. What I encourage people to do, and if you're listening, you need to take a macro view of taxation. And by that, I mean a lot of people take a view of taxation like they're driving down the road of retirement, and they're always looking in the rear view mirror to see how much tax did I have to pay for last year. You're always looking back. If you drive down the road looking in your rear view mirror, you're gonna have a crash. You need to look out the windshield, and instead of saying, what do I have to pay for taxes for last year? You need to be saying, what am I going to have to pay for taxes? You say, where? On your IRAs, your 401ks, your 403bs, all of that money's gotta be taxed before you can spend it. So you need to be asking yourself, how much am I going to have to pay in a macro view down the windshield of life in taxes over my lifetime? And you need to be working with somebody who can come in and help you lower that tax burden that you're going to have. It's going to be major, and you need to know how much it's going to be and how you can alleviate some of those big tax bills that are going to come down the road. That's what I like about taxes, is that you can do something about it now. A lot of people, Cynthia, say, well, I'm glad I don't really have a tax plan. Guess what? You do. The government has one for you. You need to get your own.
Tom, sage advice. Thank you so much. To our viewers at home, thank you for spending time with us.
Welcome back, Southern California. You're watching Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. And if you're just tuning in and joining us, we are talking today about the greatest trick ever played, which is taxes. And we've said before that success in retirement isn't about how much you have, it's about how much you get to keep. And so many folks unknowingly are sitting on a ticking tax time bomb with their retirement accounts, because we know that the majority of Americans have the bulk of their wealth saved up in these tax deferred accounts. So we've been talking about the 401k, the 403b, these traditional IRAs, 457, whatever the case might be. This is the problem, is all that money has yet to be taxed.
Right, and the reason we put it in there was we were told that put it in the 401k, save your taxes now, lower your taxes now, because every dollar that goes into a 401k, a regular 401k, does save tax in that year. And we were always told, Kristin, that by the time we get to retirement, our tax brackets will be lower. Mm-hmm. But most people that we deal with are realizing that it costs just about as much to live in retirement as it does to live in real life before you get to retirement. Mm-hmm. So the tax brackets aren't low, and probably with a $35 trillion debt, we're not really looking at a good possibility of tax brackets going lower, but we are actually, on the other hand, looking at the potential of tax brackets going higher. Mm-hmm. And so that is a really real possibility in retirement, that you may be paying more money in retirement on taxes than you did during the regular season, you might say.
Yes, right.
And one lady down in Seal Beach once told me about 15 years ago, she said, Tom, it was a big trick. And I said, what do you mean? Her name was Sylvia. She's passed away since. Mm. And she said, when I was making a lot of money and I was putting the money in the 401k, they said, your tax bracket will be lower when you're older.
Right.
And she said, what I realized is when I was making all of that money and putting the money in the 401k, I had 5 kids and I could take a deduction on each one of them. And at that time, you could deduct all of your interest and all of your taxes, all of it on a house rather than just a $10,000 cap. And she said, now in retirement, I'm actually paying more in taxes because I don't have any of those deductions that I had when I was growing up and growing through the years. So it's something that you realize you can't always determine. See, Will Rogers said the difference in death and taxes is death doesn't change every time Congress meets.
Right.
Okay. And tax laws are written in pencil. And if they're written in pencil, you need to realize they could change. So you can't go to the bank on anything they're telling you about tax laws. You can pretty much only be certain as to what they are right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think of one of the recent rule changes as well, the required minimum distribution age.
Right.
A lot of folks thought, oh, this is so nice of them. They're pushing it till we're older so we don't have to take out the money sooner. Yeah, why are they doing that? Because they know that those accounts are going to continue to grow, which means they're going to get a greater piece of that pie when you do hit RMD age, right?
You've got to realize right now that the government is not necessarily on your side, and in fact, probably are against you on your side. Now, here's some things they're doing. They're pushing the RMD level. They're pushing that up. I don't even want to mention what it was, but 5 years ago it was here, then they bumped it to here, and right now your RMD age is 73. So if you were born in 1951 and you've got an IRA or an old 401k and you're not still working at that company, this year you have to start taking required minimum distributions. Explain those, Tom. Required, there's a minimum, and you have to take it out, distribution. And you need to be working with a company that instead of putting it on page 3 of your statement at the end of last year and leaving it up to you as to when to take it out, you need to be working with a real financial planner who's a fiduciary, who's doing what's in your best interest, and who says, we're going to help you make sure you take it out, because though they've lowered the penalty from 50%, it's still 25% excess penalty in addition to the tax, in addition to the penalty for not doing it in a timely manner. There's going to be a 25% additional penalty if you don't take the tax out the right way. So again, it's a gotcha. They've got you on this thing and you've got to do it. And so many people come to me and they say, we really don't need that money. Guess what? The government needs that money.
Exactly.
And
right.
they will begin to take it out. Another thing they're doing is they're pushing everybody into Roths, and Roths are a good idea overall. But the idea of the Roth is they're getting their money now,
right, versus
rather
later.
than waiting till later, and they need the money now.
Yes.
So don't assume, if you're out there, don't assume the government's on my team. They want to help me. They want to do everything they can. We believe you should pay every penny that you're legally required to pay. Legally required to pay. We do not believe, and there have been court cases that have come down with this judgment, nobody is required to pay more than they're legally required to pay. And so you need to be working with somebody. Now, you want to know what your tax bill could be if you want to leave it up to the government's plan versus maybe having a plan like we build at Mosley Wealth Management for our clients. You can go to this little URL code. It's easemytaxbill.com. Let me say it again, ease, E-A-S-E, my tax bill. There you see it on the screen. Go to easemytaxbill.com. You can enter your information, the amount of money you've got in your IRAs and your 401ks. You can enter your tax bracket, and it will give you what you will pay on the government's plan versus what you will pay if somebody helps you build your plan and takes it out according to in your best interest. You need to go there. easemytaxbill.com. You need to go there.
In addition to going to that site, folks can simply scan that QR code next to the website there, and you can even start that process. And Tom, I'm really glad that we're talking about this, because the misconception is a lot of folks think maybe, okay, I have $1 million saved up in my traditional IRA, let's say, right? And they think, great, that's what I've got. The point is, that is not all your money. Uncle Sam still has his hand in the pot, and any money that you are going to take out for income for yourself to spend in retirement has to go through this tax process first. And I think it's really eye-opening when folks can see the government's plan for them versus what can be done if they engage in strategic tax planning, which is something you are so passionate about helping folks do.
Very much so. My goal for every one of my clients and the people I work with is you have as much money of all of that money that you've worked all of your life to save to spend in your retirement or to pass along to your heirs. And the government is sitting there and they're ready to tax you at every point. If you make a mistake, they're gracious. They'll only charge you a 25% penalty for making a mistake when you're 73 years of age or older. So boom, a lot of people right then are making mistakes on taxes. So we want to help our people keep as much money as they possibly can. You're one click away from knowing what the government plan is versus knowing what a plan could be if we put it together for you and help you with it. Go to that easemytaxbill.com.
Such a great starting point is that 𝗧𝗍𝒻𝐻.com. We encourage you to visit that. But if you know you are ready to take the next step and you want to have a solid tax plan as part of an overall financial plan built for you, this is why Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management are inviting you for no cost, no charge, no obligation to come in and claim your complimentary retirement blueprint. To claim yours, simply call 866-709-1462. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more right after this.
Fiduciary is a big word in our industry, and fiduciary means you act in a client's best interest. At Mosley Wealth Management, you are an individual. You're different than anybody else on this planet. You look different. You've got a different social security number. You live at a different address. Everything about you is different. The first visit is just getting to know them, getting to know where they are. We literally start with a blank legal pad. And at the end of that meeting, we just say, okay, you've brought a lot of stuff here. Do you want us to look at this stuff and see what we would recommend? And when I look at statements that people bring me from so-called fiduciaries, and I ask them, I say, why did you get put 50% in this and 50% in this? Many times they'll say, well, that's what the advisor said he likes to do. My question is, would I do this for my mom? Would I do this for my dad? Would I do this for myself? So you really have to sit back sometimes and say, if I were them, if I were sitting on their side of the table, what would I do? And I've literally sat in my office at least once every 2 or 3 weeks and try to put together a case for somebody where it's iffy as to whether they'll make it or not. And you have to ask yourself, what would I do if I were in their situation? And never, ever recommend something that you wouldn't do if you were right where they are.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the president and founder of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristin Oakley. If you're just joining us, we are having a very important conversation today all about taxes, otherwise known as the greatest trick that has ever been played on all of us. And Tom, one of the things we want to make sure we cover today, you work with a lot of families. And this tax planning conversation can have huge effects on other family members. Mm-hmm. You also work with a lot of folks who are single. Mm-hmm. And being in a higher tax bracket as a single taxpayer, that also has huge ramifications. But the reality is, if you are married and you have a family, chances are at some point, at least one person in that family is going to become single. We have to talk about the different aspects of tax planning based on where you are in your stage of life. Because a lot of folks think, oh, well, it doesn't matter, I'll just let my kids deal with this if I just leave the money to them, without realizing the unrealized consequences of what doing so could do. It could be very harmful for the children as well.
It could be. And everybody, I have actually had people say, well, everything that we have, we're going to leave to our kids, and that's a gift to our kids, so let's let them pay the taxes on it. But what people don't realize, especially if you're married, if you're single, that's not a bad idea if that's what you want to do. But if you are married, the chances are that both of you are not going to pass away in the same year. Mm-hmm. And the surviving spouse is going to go to the single tax bracket after the passing of the first spouse. So you don't leave the burden to your children. you leave the burden to the surviving spouse if everything you've got is still left in the IRA or left in the 401k. Whatever you're paying out, you're taking it out as regular income as long as there's two of you, and you're taking it out under married filing jointly in almost every case that I run across. But once there is only one spouse, then you go to the single tax bracket, which cuts all those brackets in half. So instead of going to the 22% tax bracket around 100,000, you go to the 22% tax bracket as a single person around 50,000. Those of you who are single know exactly what I'm talking about because you face this already. So the idea, I say, how do we get out of it? And a lot of people come to me and they say, well, I wish I had put my money in a Roth a long time ago. I wish I had started when I was 20, one guy told me recently, and I had started putting my money into a Roth. Well, that would have been really cool because when you were 20, they didn't have Roths, okay? They only started in 1997, 1998, and they didn't really get popular until that Secure Act when they changed the rules again, and they played a trick on us again, and they said, now you have to take that money out over 10 years after you leave it to your heirs. So people began to say, well, that's not quite as good a deal for my kids. It's not as good a deal for my wife. So what do I have to do? I need to convert into a Roth. Now, one of the things that we will do for people that we are working with is we will help them with a Roth conversion. People say, well, I can't start a Roth because I wish I'd started one earlier. I started one recently for an 83-year-old man who has no income. You cannot contribute to a Roth because you have to have earned income to a Roth, but you can convert from your IRAs and your 401k into a Roth. And paying taxes now, I'll give you one absolute why it makes more sense in 2024 and 2025 to pay more tax now than to wait till 2026. All of the tax brackets that went down in 2017 under the Trump tax cuts, they go away in 2026. The 10 goes back to 12, the 12 goes back to 15, the 22 goes back to 25, the 24 goes back to 28. Those are not people that are making over $400,000. Those are people who are making $100,000, $50,000, $120,000. So paying more tax this year and next year makes more sense than waiting for 2026. Are you working with an advisor that's helping you on that? Listen, that's what we stand here to do. We started to make sure that people never ran out of income 29 years ago. And we realized 2 or 3 years later that the biggest thing taking their income was taxes. So now we are here to help people pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate your passion for this, and I'm excited for more folks to connect with you as a result of today's show. So if any of this is resonating with you, we know it might be new to you. You haven't navigated through it before yourself. It's not new to Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management. They would love to help and serve you. 866-709-1462 to get your complimentary retirement blueprint. We love you, Southern California. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you next time here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.